Here.
Dale Loxton,
Here.
Kelly Parker,
Here.
Terry Turner,
Here.
Caleb Osborne.
Here. We have a quorum. We'll go on to the next item, approval of minutes of regular meeting held March 9th, 2020.
I move we approve the minutes from March 9th.
Second. We've got a motion second. Call the roll, please.
Parker,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Loxton,
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes. On to the next item, item 4, reports from staff, city council report.
Well, I guess the main thing is, one of the main things that we've been dealing with is coronavirus and what, as a municipality, we're doing to mitigate transmission of coronavirus. It looks like, after nearly 2 months, things may be starting to go back to a little bit of normalcy, but still things are, I guess, enough up in the air that it's hard to make any full-blown decisions to go back to business as usual. We had implemented a unified command with EMS, fire, and police department to kind of lead our efforts with our public safety committee, to look at what the guidances are and recommendations are out there from both the state and federal levels, and decide what would be best for our community. And so far, so good. Only a few cases, and they here in Alva and Woods County, and each of the 3 were asymptomatic, so they really weren't sick, but they did have the virus. So, I think the community has done a pretty good job of making responsible decisions, and there's a few out there that have kind of blown it off, but I think for the most part, people are trying to make sure that they're not passing this virus unintentionally from one person to another. We are presently past the first round of, we've received the applicants for the city business manager position. The committee has met and had narrowed it down to the people that go to the next stage of review and reference checks. And so we're hoping that by the time the June city council agenda rolls around, we'll have had some special executive sessions for interviewing candidates and whatnot, that hopefully an offer is extended by the June city council meeting for that. There were 10 applicants altogether, and we'll keep you posted as to what comes of that process. The other thing really going on is that we've been looking at our budget for the upcoming year, and we're not real optimistic on having a good year for the city as far as revenue is concerned. So we are looking at several measures to dial back spending, including probably only spending in areas where we have dedicated revenue, like the money that's dedicated for the streets, that we'll spend that money. Any areas where we're getting grants for projects, we'll spend that money. But other than that, we're really looking at dialing things back quite a bit in order to make sure and keep our cash in good position to where we are able to take care of our staff and weather what we think is right now still a pretty uncertain storm. We did get sales tax collections from March. We received those last week, and they were about average, but they were down from the previous month. So we're I guess you hope for the best and prepare for the worst. We're preparing for, we're setting our budget based on our 2016 spending. So, you know, when oil goes below zero, and I know it's not there right now, but it just kind of makes us a little bit more conservative in our planning for the future. I'm happy to answer any questions. Angelica, is there anything?
You know what? We'll go on to the next item. I assume that the fuel report and the hour report was supposed to be under airport manager's heading instead of city council, so
Yes.
we'll let that be under his heading. So we'll go on to the next item, which is manager's report.
Okay, I think the COVID thing kind of had an effect on us last month. I did one truck transfer of 360 gallons a ton. 2.3 gallons went to a price change and double checked working on the plumbing on the fuel filter out there. So our overall gallons sold at the pump was 1,923.4 for a total of 7,758.47. And we did sell 295.8 off the truck for a total of 1,271.94. So our total ag gas sales last month, 2,219.2 gallons at 9,030.41. Jet A sales were way down last month. We only sold 290 gallons total for $986. The total fuel sales were 10,016.41. We sold oil in the amount of 129.96. The tax on that was 12.02. We had 5 nights of transient hangar rental for $75. So our total sales last month were 10,233.39 compared to April of 19. Avgas was up a little bit. Jet A was way down, but I think COVID's got a lot to do with that. So, any questions on the fuel report? If not, my next thing, there's some things that I'm going to have to be dealing with fairly soon. In the packets, there should be a picture of the tappy lights. I was told that they thought the slope was off. That's why some of them look dim. The ones on the north end, there's 3 bulbs in each fixture out there. Total of 4 fixtures on each end. The south ones have been going in and out. I called Williams Electric about it. I think that initial install years ago, I'm just speculating, was not done correctly. There should be 2 holding rods on the front of each fixture, that once they get those set, the holding rods hold that in place so it doesn't tilt, doesn't shift. Well, as you can see in the picture, there's only 1 rod mounted up to the bottom. The other one's 2 inches from being up there. And that's on the north end. They're like that. On the south end, there is no holding rods on any of those 4 fixtures. So he says that's what's causing those to shift in the wind, birds sitting on them. It's knocking the tilt switches out, it's burning out light bulbs, and the light bulbs for them aren't cheap. So we'll look into having Williams come out and see what can be done about it. But
Is there anything stopping you from going down and buying some rods and screwing in them and
well, they're all out of tilt now, and they're not on.
stabilize them? Taking a protractor and measuring to get them all back adjusted correctly? I mean, this one, here can be screwed back up against it and tightened back, at least.
Yeah.
And then acquiring or making look like they're all thread, an all thread would work just as fine as those.
Yeah, that's what it is an all thread.
Making enough for the rest of the lights before Williams gets here. It charges us $500 a watt.
Yeah, I can do that, but we still gotta figure out where they're supposed to be set and everything now, because if they haven't had those holding rods for years, I'm sure that's why he said that's why it's burning out all the bulbs. I bet there's 5 bulbs out of 12 on the north end. And the bulbs aren't cheap, so we're trying to work with me on locating the bulbs. But yeah, I can do some of that, but as far as the adjustment and everything, that's going to have to be done by an electrician. I mean, because they'll know the slope they're supposed to be set at and everything. So, unless you happen to know the slopes.
It's in the FAA regs on it.
Right.
There ought to be a point on there somewhere that they use as a zero to adjust the angle. Whether it's the bottom of the base or whatever.
Yeah, but there's nothing, he told me what to do on that. I looked, there's nothing wrote on, so, and we have no paperwork on. I got the book in there, but it doesn't, it's on the pappies, but it doesn't have where they're supposed to be set at and everything, so. Also, the avgas truck, it started giving me fits last Wednesday. Saturday, I can barely even keep it running, so I'm going to try to work on that, change the fuel filter, put some seafoam in it, see if I can get it cleaned up. It just all of a sudden, it was running fine, and then Wednesday, it started acting weird, and then Saturday, I couldn't even hardly get it to run. The other thing, it's almost time for the fuel farm to have both the filters changed and have all the filters changed in both the trucks again. That year's the ZTR belt drive that drives the blades. I'm going to have to put a new belt on it. It's cracking more now. Got a big crack in it. It's going to fly off one of these days. So those are the 4 big things that I've got in the works right now. I've strived at this job to learn, like Pappy likes, to learn about that stuff. There's just certain things that are going to be out of my realm. I did find out a lot of people were complaining about the AWAS, and I did some research, called out to California, talked with the guy. There's 9 lenses out on our AWAS that are to be cleaned regularly, and I doubt that they've been cleaned in years, so I've been real conscious about trying to do that once a month, and it seems like it's helped a lot on the AWAS not giving off false readings, showing it's clear when it's foggy, or vice versa. So, last weekend, I noticed I was here mowing a little late in the evening. I noticed the white side of the beacon was out, so I came in on Sunday, climbed up there, took all the tools, the grease gun, the new bowl, got up there, put the white side in, got down, turned it on, and then the green side wouldn't come on. So I took the other bulb back up there, I got it going, found out the bulbs are to be changed every 3 years regardless. I had no idea when the last time the bulbs were changed, so I documented that in my Excel spreadsheet. The other thing, I did call the Woods County Extension agent about the turf runway. The first thing the Extension agent asked me was, did we perform soil samples before we sprigged it? I said I did not know the answer to that, but my guess was probably no. So he suggested the first thing to do was get some good soil samples. When I found this out, one of the airport patrons called me. I explained that to him. He stepped forward as a donor, a local place, came out, took some soil samples, found out it was way behind on nitrogen and phosphorus. They came out, sprayed it for weeds, got rid of all the cheat and everything, and then about 2 weeks later, they came out and ran a dry fertilizer truck over it. So hopefully that will help a little bit if we start keeping it fertilized, as long as we don't get back into a drought or something. So the next thing we need to do is decide if we want to roll it or we don't want to roll it. But that's what I found out from the Woods County Extension agent. Like I said, a donor stepped forward, got it sprayed for us, and got it fertilized. Now we just need to keep it up, because we are getting some good grass out there. I mowed it over the weekend. We're getting some good grass growth on it now, and I think getting rid of all the cheat and everything, and the Johnson grass will help a lot too. So, as far as mowing goes, I've been keeping track the time I've mowed this year, started the mowing. I had put 27 hours on the big tractor alone, and don't even have it all mowed yet. That doesn't include the ZTR and the weed eating. That's a lot of time on the tractor when you put 27 engine hours on it and you lack 10 or 12 hours from having the whole place mowed. I'm just wondering if we've ever thought about making a couple of passes around the outside, around the lights and everything, and then seeing if we can get somebody in here to hay it. We would be making money instead of spending so much money in fuel and everything, trying to keep it manicured. And that's just my idea. I know other airports do have it hayed. You gotta let it grow up a little bit, but you could always make those 2 passes around the lights and around the outer edges. I talked to a cattleman. He says that it would be fine for hay. So that's just the thought I had. That's up to you guys. I'll do whatever you want. So that's about all I have for my part of the manager's report. So there's no other questions.
Yeah, if you could research that more and give us more details of paying who'll do it, what it'll cost, or what it will make on it, what the FAA says about leaving hay bales
Have
sitting
to have them
around.
out of the safety zone. Have to have them back 250 foot. I know that. So
Yes.
they pretty much got to pick them up right after they kick them out. So
Research that a little bit,
I can do that.
get some figures, better figures, and they can make a decision.
Yeah, I'll do some research. I'll contact a couple of the airports I know that do have it. So there's an awfully, even with all the farm ground that we gave back and leased out and stuff, there's still a lot of mowing to do. If you guys don't have any other questions, that's my part of the manager's report. So,
Anything else for the city manager, or the airport manager? I'm sorry. We are here for
Is
the city manager.
there plans for the dirt over here, Greg? Are we gonna spread it somewhere?
I'd like to just stack it up. That's all the stuff they took out from Todd, and I didn't want to get rid of it because I could use some around the lights. I'd like to try to fill in. There's a pretty big not low spot, but where it's settling between you and Bob. That's why I always break that off into patches, because I don't want to knock the front end of the tractor off. I think it's an old sewer line or something.
Yeah, they laid a gas line through there now.
So, and it's settled. I mean, it's settled a lot. So.
Okay.
So, yeah, I want to try to get it piled up and just use it for stuff around here. So, he couldn't pile it up, they had one of just the dump trailer, you know, and that's the best he could do. It wasn't like a dump truck or anything, they would put it in. So we just spread it out over there and we'll get the top it on the tractor one of these days and try to pile it up a little better.
Okay.
Use it, so.
Anything else for the airport manager? not, we'll go on to the next item, discussion and action on a policy for passenger accounts. You see the,
You want to talk about, Paul's the one that sent this information over. I know the meeting I missed, we had some discussion, it sounds like about past due accounts, and Paul had found some information some other airports had used, and that's what this information is, kind of a starting point for us. Paul, I'd like to hear your input a little bit.
Yeah, what you saw here, the typing up of the month-to-month hangar rent situations and then the yearly hangar rent, it's kind of a composite of several different airports that I looked at. And I compiled it to give us a place to at least start discussion and know where to go, so you can see what they do. I mean, we don't really have, to my knowledge, a policy out here on how that handles. And, you know, we want to try to be fair with people. Not everybody has a hard patch every now and then. You want to kind of help people out once in a while, but there comes a point where you also have to, the money that comes into here pays salaries, pays utilities, and once you let something go, then it can spread like a disease. No pun intended, spread like a virus, and other people will want to do the same thing. I'm willing to answer any questions. This is, like I said, this is a composite of several different things. There may be things in here you don't care for, some things you want to add, but at least I felt it was a starting point for discussion. It allows a person to miss one payment for their rent, like on a monthly, but at 60 days, as it says here, it'd be considered past due, or you would receive a past due notice. And then you can see at the 90 and 120 day thing, what would go into place. And I've always felt, as part of business practice, you need to have a little bit of teeth in it, or it doesn't mean anything to anybody. And so that's what you see in here is that at some point you have to say, we're serious. Here's the penalty for not paying on time until you catch up. This is what needs to happen, and we go from there. Be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
So, to the point that they are delinquent, would we just plan on putting a lock on the hangar and locking them out of their stuff, or what would?
Well, what's here is that at 90 days past due, you can put a lien against the tenant's aircraft. So, and then you can require the renter to make payments in cash with a certified cashier, in cash with a certified cashier's check. And then 120 days past due, with 10 days notice, you can move the aircraft and the contents of the tenants to an outside storage area, or to a different storage area. And then relocation. Like if the aircraft is moved to an outside tie down, it's still a public space. You still charge for that outside tie down. They still get charged for that. But it's, 120 days, you're talking, a significant part of a year. And if a person that, there is a catch-all clause in here. It says at any point in the process, due to highly unusual extenuating circumstances, the tenant and the Alva Airport Commission may agree in writing to a one-time timeline extension up to exceed 60 days. So if you go 120 days and for extenuating circumstances, another 60 days, they either have a chance to move their aircraft to the airport, take it off the airport, sell it. We all have options as to what's going on.
I thought it was well put together, pretty well covered the floor. If they don't, we moved their plant, we moved their, if they have to go in the hangar.
Right. And I think we may not have reached this point if there had been more communication in some of our existing situations, or more of an attempt to remedy the problem. But back and look, if you go back, I went back and checked based on the financials that we have. And on November of 2017, we were backlog $172. In December, November of 17. In December of 18, it was up to $2,400. In December of 19, it was up to $3,400. And as of April 1st, it was at $4,300. So at what point, does our goodwill, get abused? Or go to a hangar that costs less money or something that you can't afford. But that's 3 years. And if any of us were ever in the rental business, or do business, you don't run accounts like that.
Actually, this is definitely what it's like.
It is. And
It's more than fair.
So would we be the ones to set like the tie-down fees and decide where the stuff was gonna go if we had to move it out? Because
Yes.
this is my feeling, why move it out of the T hangar and put it in the community hangar and just take up, that's just taking up another spot.
Oh,
Okay.
Wouldn't
Less
want it
rent.
rent.
It's less rent, I understand, but if you're not paying that less rent, it's not gonna matter. That's my opinion.
It wouldn't go on a hangar. It'd go on a tie down. And as far as I know, we don't charge for tie downs.
So
Or
we start charging.
We didn't used to. Because years ago when I had an airplane down here, I couldn't afford a tank. So I tied it down where the maintenance hangar is now. That used to be tie downs. And when I was on the Aeronautics Commission, if the ramp was revenue producing, we did not fund it. And I don't know what their policy is today, because that's been more years ago than I'm sure. But I would not put it in another hangar. I mean, they forfeited their right to that hangar when they didn't pay the rent.
That's the way I feel.
So I don't disagree with any of this. Are we gonna have to get a judgment, against the delinquent, renter in order to get that lien on the aircraft?
I've done that a long time, I can't tell you. Max, would you know anything on that?
Or put the lien on the aircraft,
Yeah.
there's got to be an aircraft in that hangar or they could rent it in the first place.
Well, but I mean, do we have to get a judgment for delinquency?
Better talk to the attorney.
I mean,
You don't.
Just in what I've been dealing with my clientele, I'm gonna have to get a judgment in order to get a lien on any assets.
The FAA works different on that kind of stuff. I didn't have time to research that, but I did know 2 airports that did that.
The FAA does not require a legal judgment. Put a lien on there. All you do is fill out a paper and send it in. It goes in the permanent file. Next time we go try to sell it,
It shows up, the buyer knows about it.
the buyer knows it comes up that it's got a lien on it.
Well, that's
And it's a mechanic's lien like that.
Yeah.
A car
like
mechanic.
mechanics lien? or-
Yeah, it's a mechanic's lien.
So, but this is only good if it's enforced.
Right.
We can write policies all day long, but if we don't do anything with them, if they're not enforced, then it doesn't work. So, but I see this as a cooperation between the airport and the city doing this,
And I don't think it'd be in my opinion, wouldn't be any issue when we do the billing at City Hall. If it's 30 days past due, but the stand on it says it's 30 days past due, we'd have to come up with some language for a final notice on once we get into those stages. But I think once you've had it all put together, it wouldn't be a difficult process. Shelley, who does our airport billing, she's got a good handle on it, and it shouldn't be something hard. I don't really see that it would be an issue.
So when it got to the point where we're putting a lien on things, it would just be a matter of having the right paperwork and knowledge of who to submit it to, and then it would be done.
I think it gets submitted to Oklahoma City, that's where the records are for the aircraft. I think it goes down there. And I think you probably print the form right off the internet, most of that base stuff you can print right off the internet. And so that way, what this does, like, it keeps them from disposing of the asset and not taking care of it.
Right. Now, if they never sell the asset, then we just never collect, but
Right, well, then
Potentially.
you can take it to another step. You know, at some point, then you can do what you need to do.
At some point, they're gonna want to sell that asset, either them or their heirs.
And have to do buyer buys it,
You
to
know.
have that lien attached to it.
And you're not gonna have a financial institution loan you any money on that airplane. So it's got a lien on it.
So my question, I guess, would be on past due account that we already have, or do you want to implement this starting today? I mean, that would be my question too, how we would implement it with our current tenants that may already be in a past due status.
I mean, it's just a suggestion. You know, if we approve this today, then I would say the clock starts ticking today.
Do we give them an item 6, unusual extenuating circumstances, and extend the timeline to 60 days?
You could do that, I mean, whatever you want to do. But I mean, in 60 days, you can either take the wings off and store it in your own barn, if you're ready to do something with it, you know, or sell it, or bring your account up, or work out a payment agreement that you'll stick to.
is there, do we need to have our attorney look at this before we?
I mean, I did send it over to him, I haven't heard back on it, so, that's my fault, I didn't send it till last week, so we can have him look at it and make sure there's nothing in there that needs to be,
Added for our protection?
added for our protection just in case, and then,
We could approve it pending the attorney's review,
yes, we could.
so in that regard, would that be satisfactory?
And then it'd be sent out to each tenant, through mail or posted.
I'd say we can stick a copy of it in the next billing cycle that goes out. These are the new policies, and then effective whatever date that I did the clearance from Rick.
Sounds fine to me.
I don't see why there's any reason that we couldn't do it that way.
And if he's got anything to suggest or change,
If it was, I mean,
if it was material, bring it back here for us to discuss, and if it was just language,
then just leave it at, are you guys okay, would you guys be okay with that?
Yep.
And we're good on both.
So we need a motion?
The month
Yeah.
to month and the year to year, or is it just?
What's that?
do it on both.
Good with the month to month, or?
So some people might do month-to-month rents, and some people do annual
Year,
rents.
some do month to month, some do year, so I would think you have to do it, should do it on both.
And you have policies that are those. So.
And I mean, for the yearly ones, we would just go ahead and send that out, even though they may not have a billing, we'd go ahead and send that.
Go ahead and send those.
I move
I'll second.
trying to think how to word this. I move to implement month to month and year to year hangar rent default policies and procedures as presented pending legal review.
Okay, we got a motion. Any discussion?
He said,
If not,
I'll second.
we got a second too? Call the roll, please.
Parker,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Logston,
Yes.
Kinsey,
yes.
Mossberg.
Yes.
Okay. We'll go on to the next item, discussion and action on Jet A fuel pump repair replacement. Okay, so we've got two attachments here.
Do we know what the discrepancy is in Hoydale and Double Check? Is one just a lot more proud of their labor than the other?
The guy from Hoydale, and they both said, the tank has been in the ground so long, the manway that they will have to open up is gonna kind of be a booger to get into, because everything's rusty and stuff. Those spill buckets get water in them. The guy from Hoydale said if they can get the bolts broke loose and everything goes okay, you know, that was their quote. Why Double Check was so much higher, I don't know, but.
So with Double Check, or with Hoydale, we may have a change order if they can't get in easy?
Yeah, and I mean, and I know he was saying, the guy from Double Check told me it's a 3-day job, and the guy from Hoydale said it shouldn't be near that long, 3 days. So I don't know if Double Check was anticipating more labor, you know, along with.
They are anticipating substantially more labor.
A lot of labor.
Yes.
So,
And some overtime on the labor as well. I mean, there's a lot more than
So
what
poison
what
will
it
come
is.
back and be quoted if they did have to, if they did have trouble with breaking bolts loose and getting in.
well, I mean,
Hoydale.
you got a lot of leeway there for $5,000. I mean, you know, as far as time goes,
Yeah.
so.
You know, unless I just didn't look at it right, Hoydale, in their scope of work is pretty specific, but they also say that any additional work not listed would be a change order. You know, I'm not opposed to trying to get this done with the lowest quote here, and then, you know, with the understanding that Double Check's going to charge us that much whether it's 3 days or 1 day, because that's what they bid it.
Kind of sounds like it.
But Hoydale, there might be a chance that we come in less, but there might be a chance that we come in more.
Right. Yeah, you never know when you're dealing with these guys, because both, there's just not that many places in the state of Oklahoma that do this type of work, so you're kind of limited on who you can get.
So is Double Check doing their own electrical work? Because Hoyledale broke it out and said that we had to furnish the electrician for connection and disconnection for this. Double Check,
So I'm guessing Hoydale does that.
so does Double Check do their own electrical work then?
Double Check does it, yeah, because the guy from Double Check was the one that went out there to the breaker box on your side. We got the pump started, it ran a little while, kicked it off. He said, yeah, it's a bad pump. So maybe Hoydale doesn't do that, so. Yeah. I see that on Hoydale, so we have to get climbs out, I guess,
Well, it says in here, Kelly, that if studs and bolts must be replaced due to corrosion, work will stop and customer will be consulted. Estimate for additional work will be agreed upon by both parties
Yeah.
before a change order.
surely it wouldn't be another $5,000.
Both types of bolts.
You would think they put stainless steel bolts in there or something.
Do you feel comfortable with either group working on it?
I've had both of them out here. I mean, they both done different things here, so.
Both of their work has been okay for you?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about the Jet A tank versus the avgas tank, it's got a floating suction pump on it, which is the method for jet fuel, that way you don't risk the contaminants, getting the water and stuff in it. So, and I guess that's the way they decided to do it years ago, was put the floating section in. They both did say the pump's been in there 20 to 25 years, so. Things wear out after that one.
Double check's got almost 2 weeks labor on there,
Yeah, it's all,
2 40-hour weeks.
I make a motion that we go with the oil deal.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Logston,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes.
Go on to the next item, discussion and action on use of CARES airport funding.
And I sent through, when the CARES Act and information had come out, and it was, came to light that we were gonna get $30,000, I sent through a couple of different Zoom meetings on it. What they call the quickest and what really was set up for is, this CARES Act money was set up to be for operations during COVID-19 and knowing that there was going to be a reduction in revenue. And so that is really what it is intended for, and that's the best and quickest way to be able to get the $30,000 that comes in to us, and there's no restrictions on it. And I sent out Femi, he sent out an email that kind of summarized each of the options. If you want to use it for development or construction on the project or land acquisition, we're going to have a lot more hoops to jump through. And there's a lot of specific information, but I talked to Dale, I talked to Paul, I know I talked to Kelly. I may have not talked to Terry or Caleb as much, but I know the general consensus that I heard was that we probably needed to go ahead and use it for operational expenses. If you guys decide tonight that you would like to see it utilized another way, I can go back and we can pull some additional information. But in talking with even Toby from CEC, there's a lot more paperwork. The revenue that we would get would be under a lot more scrutiny if we were going to utilize it for something other than operational costs. This gives us a lot of flexibilities because there's not a lot of strings attached to it if we use it for operational costs. Any of our normal expenditures are going to be operational costs. And so as long as we bring that money in, we know that that's what we're going to use it for. There's not a lot involved in it otherwise.
One of the reasons I thought we could get to use it for operations is just because I don't know what our revenue is going to look like in the future months. And if we went and used it on a project, we might get a project done, but then we might have a struggle later with operations. So that's why I'm just in favor of the quickest, most efficient use it for operations.
Do you need a motion on that, or just a consensus?
No, there is no restriction on timeline.
Timeline to spend it or anything?
No, not to my knowledge. And we didn't necessarily have to have a formal motion to be able to do it. Greg is authorized to sign the paperwork and be done, but I wanted to bring it before you guys in the event that you would want to use it a different way than what I felt we should do.
I like
Use it
option.
on fuel or fixing the
I
pump or
mean, basically, it
whatever.
puts it in our bank account and we can
Operation,
use it as we need to.
Repairs.
needing repairs,
Yes.
and there's always something breaking out here. So,
You're talking about a belt you needed, filters and,
right.
we can spend it.
Like I said, just the filters alone are like $1,300. Change the filters on everything.
We don't need any action on that,
Nope.
so
I'll go ahead.
we'll go on.
We'll go ahead and get that paperwork
Okay.
signed and submitted tomorrow.
We'll go on to the next item of business then. Discussion and action to accept Wise Electric Company as the lowest and best bid of $194,725 to install a omnidirectional approach light system.
Remind me what that might be in here.
Our costs are approximately,
I saw it.
$9,700 on that, based on that bid? It's 5%.
yes,
5%?
it is
5%, so it's
Yes.
about $9,700 based on
Yes.
that amount right there.
Okay.
It's not a substantial amount, no.
And they estimated to cost $350,000, so that's substantially lower than what their estimate was.
And when Toby was here and we did the bid opening, he has worked with all 4 of the companies that bid on the project. He was comfortable with any of them. He would be comfortable accepting any of their work. He did indicate, because it is an OAC funded project, that if we were going to choose someone other than the lowest bid, we would definitely have to have an exceptional reason why, and we'd have to take it to the OAC to make sure that they would then accept it if we didn't choose the lowest bid. So he had no concerns with Wise Electric. They came when we had the pre-bid meeting out here, and they were here, and
Well, I make a motion that we accept the bid from Wise Electric on the 38 AL lights.
Second?
Second.
Okay. We'll let Kelly do that second. We got a motion and second.
Have it.
Any discussion? If not, let's call the roll, please.
All right, Kinsey,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Loxton.
Yes. We'll go on to the next item of business, discussion and action on the fiscal year 2021 airport fund.
So, in talking with a couple of you over the course of the last month, Greg put together what he felt for expenses were based on what we've done throughout the course of this year, what things look like next year. He put together his thoughts on our expenses. I went through and worked on the revenue side of the budget, and just used some averages and just kind of some judgment on what I really thought it was. Obviously, our hangar rent and our farm rent, those are pretty consistent, pretty stable. We know what those are going to be. Used averages for the last several years for fuel sales, and tried to take it down a little bit. I know with our oil lease, when we had started working on this in March, the most recent check that I had seen in was about $5,000. I know, Paul, you asked me what we got in April, and it was a little over $3,000. So I used $5,000 at the time as my estimate for that oil revenue. But as we can see, it could potentially be a lot lower. So, Greg put his information, I put my information in there, and I really would like some input from you guys on what you want to see us do. I mean, in my opinion, and I think Kelly, we've discussed this, we'd like to see a balanced budget, at the very least, try not to dip into our reserves if we don't have to.
And right now, it shows us dipping in $10,781.
I will tell you, salary levels are based on one full-time staff member, one part-time staff member, utilize at similar rates to similar timeframes as to what we've been doing now. No overtime is what we've been talking about as well. That's citywide perspective as well, not just at the airport. And so that's with that assumption as well.
Okay, so in your proposed budget column, under hangar ground leases, you show an increase there over any other column in that line. Or
On
any
the
other-
48,000?
On the 48,000, where do you get?
That is based off of all of the hangar leases that we currently have. As of right now, that's based on the numbers that Shelley gave me. And so I know there are, if you look down below, we've got the ground lease. There's a couple of different lease items. So I have all of the hangar, monthly and annual, in that hangar ground lease, under charges for service. And then what's under miscellaneous is just Mr. Weaver on. And Paul, I mean, if you think that needs to be lower, we can definitely do that. I have no problem with that.
Okay, well, I don't know, ever since we've had this oil well, and we've had the budget come in, we've had to rely on the oil money a little bit to do some of the things that's gone on, which I have voiced concern about, and now maybe the payday. I have checked sources that I know out that's more familiar with oil than I am and stuff, and they're expecting maybe a slight spike up to $35, $40 in the second half of this year. But they're talking a 2 to 5 year range before oil gets back to where it was. And we don't know what point, and there's no place to store it. Everything's full right now. So we don't know what point they actually shut that thing off, or if this drilling we see just happens to be coincidental with the oil well dying out at this point. You know, I don't know. I haven't been given that information. So I hate to budget anything using any oil money at this point, and if oil money does come in, then it's just a bonus to us. But I hate seeing us budget off of that. So taking that into mind, one of the things that I did is I took our last 3 months fuel sales, February, March, and April, and the number of gallons that Greg showed in his reports, and it always used to be that we tried to average 50 cents a gallon profit off of that. And so if that comes out, based on the numbers that Greg furnished in his reports then, for those 3 months, we had a profit on her low lead of $3,300, or roughly $3,300, which is a 1,124 monthly average. And on Jet A, we had a profit of almost $1,500 profit, which came out to about $500 monthly average. Well, if you take those times 12, let's say that this is the new normal right now, because nobody is really traveling. There's no place to go to. Nothing is really open. You know, Disney's not even talking opening until July or August. You don't have any idea if football games are going to have that people are going to travel to. There's not. The traveling is still very ambiguous, for at least for the remainder, I would say, of this year. So if you take those averages and work it out times the next 12 months, the profit on the fuel that I see is $19,482.
Now, the fuel sales, that would not be the profit, that would be the total sales, so we would need.
I understand.
Okay.
So if we go on these averages of what we've sold over the last 3 months, our gross on the fuel sales that I see would be $151,000 as opposed to $184,000. If you take what's happened in the last 3 months. We don't know if this is the new normal, if this is an aberration, but I have a tendency to go to the conservative side. So, and fuel then takes care of itself. You buy fuel as you sell it, so I throw that out when I'm looking at our budget because it kind of takes care of itself based on demand. So what I do then is I go out and I look at what our income is. And basically you're shown hangar ground, before I saw the 48, I had used the 42,000 number. Permits $100, the low lead at $13,400 or $13,500 for the year profit, Jet A at $6,000 year profit. That's $62,000 income. We haven't figured any oil in there. We have fixed costs of utilities approximately $10,500, insurance approximately $10,000. We have an audit of around $3,000 and radio maintenance of $5,200. Those are pretty much things that we have to pay monthly. Those are fixed costs. That adds up to around $28,338. So if you take your income minus your fixed costs, that leaves $33,721 for labor and maintenance. If you don't figure oil into it. And that's what I saw, that's what I'm seeing. And so I, without getting into our investments and our cash. And I'm one that money, always looked at that money as a gift. It came into us from the oil well. We try to use it for capital improvements here on the airport. And just to give you an idea of what's coming up in the next few years, so in 2020, we have the ODAL lights, which is $9,700 we have coming out of that. In 2021, approximately the first phase of the taxiway and the apron project of approximately $71,000 has got to come out of that. In 2024, what's that?
I just was gonna say, is that for professional fees or?
That's our
Now,
our percentage.
Toby has told us that that the FAA grant is going to be 100%.
Oh, it is?
Yes, yes.
So we don't have to.
We don't
On
have to
phase
have-
one or phase two?
On phase one,
Phase one. So we don't have, so we can strike that 71,000. Okay.
yes.
So then on phase two, it's 70,000, well, about the same, 71,000. Then, I don't know if any of you were aware of it, but it came out, I saw it the first of last week, and comment period went till the end of the month. But the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission sent out their airport construction program for fiscal year 2021 through 2025. And in there is Alva for taxiway overlay and taxiway lights installation. And for a couple $1 million, that's going to cost to do all that out there. The numbers are in here. In 2024, our percent of payment would be $16,667, and in 2025, it's $100,000. Because the OAC is kicking in money, and we're getting money from the FAA, if this is approved. And this full document goes, I think, before the board at the end of the month for its final approval.
At the OAC meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the 20th, I believe.
On the 20th. So that's a project coming up, and all these projects that we have, that I listed off here, are all that I feel is necessary for this airport to maintain its status that it needs to for the types of aircraft that operate out of here and that we want to attract into here.
So do you feel like we need to be saving our resources? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
That's what I'm
Saving
saying
our
is
resources
that
for those
I don't
projects?
think we should be using our money that we have set back for operational expenses. Because we need it for these types of projects, because once that money is gone, how do we raise? I mean, how do we go to the city and say, over the next 5 years, we need $268,000? When you have your own issues to deal with. You know what I mean? And we never know when a tornado's coming through here, and we're going to have, insurance deductibles that we have to cover for repairing of hangars. Or we have to replace an asset out here that's expired at some degree. Or we have to replace 2 hangar doors because they've worn out their useful life and we can't use them anymore. And once that money is gone, we don't have that ability to come in and fix those things. That's my opinion. And so that's the reason I have a tendency to run conservative on that stuff, because, here, I mean, you look at the total amount, yeah, it looks like a lot, but it goes in a hurry too, when you're dealing with the kind of physical plant assets that we have out here.
So what are your thought process on cuts, on where we need to make some changes then? If we're looking at that,
Well, I mean,
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, this year to date on property maintenance, and I realize we just approved an item that would make that go up, but, we're 3/4 of the way through the year, and we're at $15,000 on property maintenance, where we have budgeted, $39,000 for the last 2 years. Or if we did that again this year, it would be the same. I know it's unpredictable, but, maybe we can, do some things to, and I'm not saying you don't, Greg, but just make sure we continue to focus on extending the life of what we have and make sure we don't have any major repairs that come up.
well, I was just going to ask Craig speaking to that, what would you?
See, and like I say, I'll have to go in there and look, and I'm not saying we made a mistake, but I would have swore we spent way over $15,000 on property maintenance this year. I could be wrong, but, there's just so many different aspects here. You have the AWAS, you have the internet and the phone, you have the PAPI lights, you have the runway lights, you have the taxiway lights, you've got like I said, the weather equipment, you got the fuel farm, you got the fuel trucks, you got the motors. There's a lot of things involved in it. And when so much of it, besides the mowers and stuff that are kind of new, the fuel farm, both these fuel farms have been in the ground for 40 years. This building's already 26 years old. You know, come in here and open the blinds the other day.
Nobody's arguing any of that.
You know,
but we didn't create the COVID problem.
No, I
It
understand.
came to us, and
Right.
we're dealing with what's been given to us.
Right. I say we try, one thing I would like to see is for our services, let's fair market value. You know, the policy's always been 50 cents. Why not try to buy low as we can and be competitive with the other airports around? And if we can make more than that, let's try to make more than that. I mean, no offense, I would like to know how long the round top and hay barn rental, $38.50. Is that the price we set when it was built in 1949? I don't know, but that's awfully low. I'm not saying we have to raise it to $100.
Last time we looked at rates was when the T-hangers were open.
And so, I mean, and all these things can be reviewed and gone on, but one of the things you're starting to look at now too is that since April of last year, over a year ago now, insurance rates have started increasing because the market had been soft in that, and it continues to increase. And I did some checking the last 2 days to see what was happening as far as aircraft owners, and they're still projecting a 20 to 25% increase this year in a lot of aviation policies. And so when you start looking at people on aircraft facing that kind of increases, you start increasing hangar rates, if fuel prices start going up, then people decide, maybe I can't afford this. And then you start looking at empty hangars. And then you don't have that income coming in. So, it's a balancing act. And it's tough. I mean, could we stand a 10% increase out here in hangar rates and lose one, lose nobody, or do we lose 4 or 5? And so,
But a 10% increase in hangar is not going to save us from this situation.
no, not the kind of money that we're talking about.
It's insignificant compared to the type of money that we're going to be needing.
So we need the jets flying again. We need, because right now, I mean, Oshkosh is canceled.
Right.
And I have seen schedules of breakfast fly-ins and annual fly-ins in other towns that are canceled through the end of June. That means nobody's going anywhere, other than they just want to come out and fly to here and poop around a little bit and leave again. So that's part of the problem in selling the fuel and getting people active and going.
I mean, like the turbine traffic has been down. I mean, it's always down in January. I mean, man, March and April, we just, I filled up one helicopter and one jet.
Right.
And you can see what we did last day.
But I think we need to analyze the budget and do what we can to bring it absolutely down, but we're not having to rely on the oil, because we don't know. I mean, it could stay at 3,500, and if it does, for a year, that ends up being what a year? It's, I think it's like $42,000.
Yeah, 42 is 42,000.
Like 42,000 at $3,500 a month. But personally, I'm not willing to gamble on that and dig that deep into our reserves.
The Corporation Commission passed something just recently where they can, always before, if you shut a well completely down, you had to close it. And then you couldn't reopen it. And they passed it where they can close it, not pump it any at all, and not have to pay revenue on it. Before, it's always been, if you had a well, you have to pump a certain minimum amount of it. And the corporation changed that because of the situation we're in, where they can shut it down to zero and not have to pump anything out. And then, I don't know how long that's, if they can do that for 3 months or 6 months or whatever, then they can turn it back on. And that's, in previous years, that has not been the case where they could do that. So, they could shut it down to zero where you have nothing next month.
expenditure side versus our revenue side. Never mind, I looked at it right. Never mind.
I mean, you know, I take into account our fixed cost of things that we have to do to, you know, flip on the light switch and open up the door, but, you know, I think everything else is on the board as far as what we need to do if we go through and take the percentage cut out of everything else.
And yeah, and I will say there's a couple more things that are, that will be fixed costs as well that maybe we're overlooking just because they're a little bit new. Like SPI, there are basically our IT providers. That's allocated out to all departments, and so that would be a fixed cost. And I apologize, I didn't bring it with me. For you guys, it's not very much. It's about a couple $100 a month. And then the phones are also included in that as well. So there's a handful there, Paul, but they're not huge expenses. I just wanted to point them out so that we didn't cut so much that we didn't have room for those. So I can look at SPI, it's right here.
Looks like they were $62 a month.
Yes. Yes.
They were $651. That's probably a Windows 10 conversion or something.
Yes, that could, looking here to see. I think that is 3 months worth of our, what I was talking about, the $200, the phones are the $62.14, and then the $651 is 3 months, and well, it's a little over $200 a month for what, like maintaining the internet, and if Greg has any issues in support, like when they come out and look at when we're having AT&T issues, which has been happening more and more frequently lately. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but so just their monthly managed support that they come out and do. But Kelly, I believe that is that $651.18 is 3 months worth of their monthly agreement. That's what's left on that.
You know, and due to this virus, I'm not sure I know anybody that hasn't been affected in some way by this and taken a hit, and either directly or indirectly due to it. And, you know, we're going to be affected as well. And who's to say that, you know, I mean, everybody has their politics and everybody has their expert that they listen to or don't listen to. But if there is a second wave in the fall, how devastating could that be to this again, if everything shut down again? Because some of our traffic, I mean, you know, there's been times out here, there's planes that's flown into for girls' soccer games at the college. The refs used to fly in to go to do, you know, I mean, there's been that kind of stuff. Parents coming in for Kids' Day. You know, there's, if the college starts and ends up not having, you know, Northwestern, Violence hasn't announced whether you're doing in-person classes yet this fall or not.
Right now, we're planning for in-person classes.
So if that, we're lucky and that happens, sometimes that changes the dynamics of things.
So
Paul,
just,
what did you figure our total revenue?
Well, I wasn't figuring the gross part of fuel. I just figuring the profit part of fuel.
Okay.
Based on the last 3 months average. And granted, that's not but that could be our new normal based on what's happened.
What did you say that was?
Based on averaging 50 cents a gallon over the last 3 months, the profit on that would be $37,899.
That's about what's budgeted, because it's budgeted at 150 in expense and 184 in revenue. So that's 34,000, almost 35,000.
So I figured our total income, based on everything, did I say that right? No, I'm sorry. Based on 50 cents average, it was $19,482.
Okay.
19,000.
the total income was 37.
Yeah. So if you, so the 42,000, let's take that up to 48. So that's 48,000. That's 8,000. So 48,000 on the hangar ground leases, permits 100, and then the almost 20,000 on fuel. That takes it up to about 70,000 income.
And well, are you including the farm lease that's down there below the 35,512?
That is not, because I didn't know if that was included in the hangar and ground leases.
It is not there, and I'm not sure when that change was made, but those are, the ground lease there is down below.
All right, so that's another 35,000.
That's about $103,600
So,
altogether.
so the income then would be, yeah. So that'd be 60 Bs. 70, so about $100,000.
Yeah, 103, when I added this up, it was
$103,000 income. So, like I said, minus the fixed costs then, so that leaves you about 70,000 left for labor and maintenance.
You know, there's going to come a point where we may have to cut some services. You know, where we don't want to, but the fact that we've got fuel trucks. You know, there's airports that don't have fuel trucks. They're a huge expense. We don't want to cut that. Going to less hours when it's mandated. We don't want to do that, but we may be forced. You know, but at least we would keep the place operational. That's the last thing we want to do is see the airport closed. You know, they may have to call in ahead of time and schedule and say, hey, I'm going to be here at such and such time. I'd like to get some jet fuel. You know,
I mean, Kelly, you're going back 4 years to figure your budget. I mean, there was a time.
We're basically cutting about $1 million.
Yeah.
I
Well, I mean, Max can tell you, there was a time this airport, their total budget was what, $30,000 down here?
A lot less,
It's a lot less than this. I mean, you know,
but we've also had inflation since.
yes.
well, we've added things out here at the airport. Like I said, the fuel trucks, the AWAS system, we didn't used to have that. The radio maintenance guys that come out, there's numerous things that. The fact now that our runway takes up more grass area, so we have less income from the farming, proportional to the size of the airport. It's just.
And you know, playing with your fuel prices could help offset some of the loss of the oil, you know, and some of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there's things that can be, it's not all doom and gloom, but I would rather see that added in, and then we have to come back and amend the budget to do this or that,
Then
and
plan
count
on
on it,
it.
and it doesn't have it.
I agree, I think that makes more sense.
I mean, that's my personal preference.
I would say with that being said, I mean, I would be open to what you guys see if we need to, we can look at some percentages and take some things out.
So is that, if I'm computing this all, we're looking at dropping about 17 grand in expenses for a zero? Because I think the oil lease estimate is pretty low. But then if we're planning on banking that and not spending that, then we've got to cut another then we've got to cut 77 to 80,000.
You talking about the oil lease
Yeah.
money?
We've got the COVID money to help us out.
The $30,000, yeah, we do have a little.
I wouldn't count on any more money this year, because we don't know, I mean,
So
in
that
the way of accounting, I would rather bank that oil money and keep track of it, and whatever we collect that, we could spend that in operational the next year without dipping into the reserves.
So
You see what
that
I'm saying?
$48,000 we were talking about using that for next year's expenses, is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, let's say if our oil lease this year, if the oil money comes in off the well, averages $3,500 a month, that's $42,000.
Right.
We don't spend that, we don't budget that into this year's plan. We have the $30,000 from the CARES Act that can kind of help cover that gap.
Okay.
We take that $42,000, we keep track of it in the ledger, and whatever that amount is, and then we can use that for operational expense the following year, where we're collecting it ahead of time, rather than planning on something that hasn't yet happened. Does that make sense? I feel a lot more comfortable doing that in this particular situation, so we kind of get a feel for how this new reality is that we have going on here.
And hopefully by next year, things will turn around
And we'll have a track record as to what's happening, and if the oil thing goes kaput, then we haven't budgeted it, and we're not going to hurt.
But we need to make up about 50 grand in either revenue or decreasing expenses then. Is that
Really
simple?
probably needs to be decreasing expenses as opposed to
Yeah.
in the revenue, in my opinion.
I mean, you can increase your 50 cents to 60 cents, but that's not going to make it a whole lot, or whatever you might.
Or even if there's, any of the things that we talked about aren't gonna be substantial dollar amounts.
And until this country gets open and people want to go places and they can access things and use, I mean, you have your flying breakfast or people fly, I mean, we're not even, we get some traffic through here, people going to Oshkosh, that's not even happening this year. So we're kind of at the mercy of some of that stuff functioning again. So just a suggestion, I'd suggest that maybe Greg and Angelica take this back, kind of knowing what we're working, and look through the remaining things that aren't a fixed cost that we have to do monthly, and see where that comes out of.
Okay.
And then we
Have a
call a special meeting and
And just hash out the budget and, okay.
finish that, and we approve it, and you send it, take it to city council. Does that sound all right with you?
I don't have a problem with that. I think that'd be fine. We could definitely do that.
Because, I mean, that's something I can stand on and sell to the city council and say, here's what we analyze, this is what we're doing, this is what we have in the future, you know, coming down the pike of improvements out here that we gotta save money for, and we.
Well, I think the city council will appreciate that, because they too have worried that one day the airport is going to be another, something that needs to be accounted for in the general fund, which, you know, how do you add more stuff to the general fund?
Right.
Yeah. So no, the city council is not going to have a problem with this.
We'll have to have the budget back really early in June, so when we would be looking at having a special meeting either towards the end of next week or the following week. So just keep that in mind. And I don't have a problem with that, just to give you guys a heads up.
That's fine, I should be in town. Well, I gotta be on this Friday, but.
I'm sure we can find something that we can make for everybody that would work out.
Do people utilize the satellite TV?
Do a Zoom meeting or something like that?
No, I mean,
Oh,
we pay for satellite.
When the transient pilots are here, but there's not very many of them here right now.
Do we need to table this or anything, any action required?
it just says discussion and action on, so we don't have to take any
We,
action.
I think I've always been told technically, if you don't take action, there's nothing that causes it to come back up again. So if we table it, it has to come back up again, and we table it for a special meeting to be held, I think would be the appropriate thing to do.
Do we need to say special meeting? Or just?
Because a regular meeting would be too late.
Yeah, a regular meeting will be too late. We'll have to have the budget put together and sent out to city council members before our next meeting. So it would have to be a special meeting, yes.
Okay, so I'll move that we table action on the fiscal year 2021 airport fund budget for a special meeting between now and the regular airport board meeting.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion second. Call the roll, please.
Parker,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Fosberg,
Yes.
Logston.
Yes.
What kind of interest do we get on the certificates of deposit? Anybody know?
It varies.
Not much.
It's not very much, no. It's usually in the 1.7, 1.8, 1.9
Next item, discussion and action to enter into executive session pursuant to 25 RS 307B1 to discuss the annual evaluation of the airport manager.
Second. Oh, we need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Parker,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Mochler.
Yes.
Remarks and inquiries by airport commission members.
I do have one thing. Joe Shirley contacted me that they are looking for a test plot for OSU on their wheat. And they, I can't remember what all issues they were having, where they were, but they would like to use about a half acre, somewhere between a half acre and an acre of this along the highway between the north end of the airport and ODOT for their test plots with OSU. When I talked to him, I said, well, right now it's under lease, but you probably just need to talk to the, I'm guessing we don't have a problem with a sublease.
But why couldn't they use this area over here?
You mean,
Right over
the
the-
east of your house?
Yeah, the east of our hangar, that used to be wheat, it's
Sure
not.
that Woods County.
Well, because they're not going to maintain it or harvest it. They would need whoever's got the lease on it to go ahead and continue to use it. But they would like us in the future to consider making it a stipulation of that lease, is that they allow OSU to sublease it from them for their test plot. Because they're not going to till it, they're not going to harvest it, they're not going to
Do anything.
do anything except use it for their testing.
What if the lessee doesn't want to do that? What if the person leasing it now doesn't want to do that?
That's why he asked, he thinks that probably it'll be fine as long as the current leasee is who it is. But that's why he was asking that we stipulate it in future lease agreements.
So going forward, we have a piece of it, that contract that says that it has to be.
Yeah. I don't have any problem.
I don't know.
So we just need to note then for future leases that.
That would just be to keep in mind for the future, and we probably need to bring it up then whenever we get to where we turn that out for sealed bids.
Okay. Any other remarks or inquiries by commission members? Remarks or inquiries by citizens? If not, we will adjourn.
Greg, it wasn't on